They say a gift from your child is priceless, but what if that gift isn't love, it's betrayal wrapped in paper? I thought my son had finally remembered me, thought maybe I mattered again after years of distance. He handed me a box on my birthday, and I smiled like a fool, believing in the goodness of family. I thought it was just a shirt, something simple, thoughtful. But when I gave that very shirt to someone else, it tore my world apart, and it tore the mask off my son. What he hid inside wasn't just paper and ink, it was a knife straight into the heart of a father. My name's Harold, I'm 68 years old, a retired truck driver from a small town in Ohio. 40 years on the road, hauling steel and lumber, sleeping in diners and motels, living off bad coffee and long highways. I gave my best years to the wheel because my boy, Michael, needed food on the table and a roof over his head. Now my mornings are quiet. I sit on the porch with my old thermos mug, watching the sun crawl up over the cornfields. My knees ache, my back reminds me of every mile, but the photos on my wall keep me company. Pictures of Michael as a boy, baseball glove too big for his hand, smile full of missing teeth. Back then I believed all the sacrifice was worth it. But time has a way of showing you truths you don't want to see, and mine was simple: love doesn't always come back the way you gave it. Michael grew up different from me. College kid, sharp suits, city job. He speaks with polish now, like he's ashamed of where he came from. When I visit him, he lowers his voice, like my rough hands embarrass him. He says things like, "Dad, you wouldn't understand how the world works now. You did the best you could, back then." Back then, like everything I ever was has already expired. But I let it go. I wanted peace. I wanted respect. I figured maybe age softens a man enough to just take the hits and smile. For my birthday, Michael offered to host a little dinner. Just a few relatives, some neighbors. I was touched, thought maybe my boy wanted to make things right. I even ironed my old shirt, the one my wife, God rest her soul, used to love. What I didn't know then was that Michael's idea of a gift was nothing short of cruel. That night Michael handed me a shirt box, wrapped neatly. He smiled that corporate smile of his, the one that never reaches his eyes. I opened it, and inside was a flannel shirt, simple, blue and gray. My style. I felt a lump in my throat. He remembered. He actually remembered what I liked. I put it on right there at the table. Folks clapped. I laughed. I felt proud. For a moment I thought my boy saw me again. But later in the kitchen, I overheard him, laughing with his friends. "The shirt's just a cover. Dad has no clue what's really inside." My heart sank. I checked the pocket. Inside was an envelope, legal papers. My house, the one I worked 40 years to pay off, signed over to him. My signature forged. When I confronted him, he shrugged. "Dad, come on, you're old. You don't need a house this big. Better in my name. I'll take care of it. You should be thanking me." I stood there quiet, my hands shook, but I didn't yell, because if I did, I would have shattered. I didn't fight him that night. Instead I folded that shirt, laid it on my bed, and stared at it until morning. A lifetime of sacrifice, reduced to a trick. But here's the thing, I may be old, but I'm not stupid. 40 years on the road teaches a man patience, teaches him how to read people, and it teaches him that the quietest moves are the deadliest. I reached out to old friends, a lawyer I once hauled freight with, a sheriff's deputy whose father I used to cover shifts for. I started collecting proof, the fake signature, the transfer papers, Michael's careless texts bragging about how he tricked me. Every night I planned, every morning I waited. A young man rushes, an old man waits, and waiting is its own kind of weapon. Michael grew bolder. He started telling coworkers about his new house. Sent texts like, "Finally got the old man's place." About time. Neighbors whispered that he was measuring for renovations. bragging at the bar that his dad was too soft to resist. And all the while I stayed calm. I mowed my lawn, I drank my coffee, I waved at folks from the porch. Never let on that I knew. That silence rattled him. He started calling late at night. "Dad, you okay? You're not planning anything, right?" But I just told him to sleep well, and I did too, knowing his reckoning was on the way. Weeks later, Michael organized a family gathering at the church hall. He wanted to announce that he was taking over the family home, wanted the community to see him as the new man of the family. I walked in wearing that same shirt he gave me, the one that carried his betrayal. When he stood up to speak, I stepped forward, holding the shirt. And instead of handing it back to him, I handed it to the sheriff sitting in the front row. The sheriff reached into the pocket, pulled out the forged papers, and raised them high for everyone to see. The room gasped. Then I pulled out a stack of Michael's printed texts, his emails, his bragging, and read them aloud to every relative, every neighbor, every friend. Michael's face turned pale, his polished mask cracked. People who once respected him now looked at him with disgust. That shirt, the one meant to humiliate me, became the very rope that hung his pride. Michael lost everything that night, the respect of family, the trust of neighbors, even his job when the scandal reached his boss. The house remained mine, but more than that, my dignity remained mine. I sat back on my porch a week later, the sun setting over the fields. The shirt folded beside me, my coffee steaming in the cool air. Neighbors waved as they passed, some nodding in quiet approval. I thought getting old meant disappearing, but that night taught me, growing old means you've got nothing left to lose but your dignity, and that's something no one can take unless you hand it to them. Maybe you've felt it too, used, forgotten, betrayed by the very people you gave everything to. But let me tell you this, age doesn't make you weak, it makes you strong in ways the young can't understand, patient, wise, unshakable. If this story struck a chord with you, tell me your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes the stories we share remind us, we are not alone. And remember, justice always comes, even if it waits for the sunset.